Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze, and I hope that you are ready to discuss some interesting things of theology. We're going to be talking a little bit about the McLean Bible Church in Washington, D.C. You may know it as the church that David Platt pastors, and they are coming out with their side of the story to some degree regarding the church members, or I guess I should maybe say ex-church members, some of them, who were kind of whistleblowers on some of the conduct. The McLean Bible Church showing some favoritism, some prejudice against certain members, depending on maybe their political leanings, as well as some shady things concerning how business meetings were conducted, all the like. We're also going to spend a little bit of time talking about the matter of faith. I feel like it's a misunderstood, confused area. And what I mean is, faith has always been an important role. It's always been something that God has asked and required of man. But so many within Christianity, maybe it's due to covenant theology, maybe it's some things that Sproul, Spurgeon, the like said, they have really undermined the Old Testament and the giving of the law, the Old Covenant, and even the New Covenant that is not yet established, because that's not for us, but for the future nation of Israel. It's just created a mess. And I want to spend some time talking about it, giving you the right division perspective on the matter, which I think is the view that is the most coherent. It's most consistent. It takes the Bible for what it says. And if we're going to defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship, we've got to have a coherent and consistent theological view, doctrinal view. And so I hope that you're ready to jump into some of these different areas today as we begin this time of discussion. Great to have all of you taking the time to join us. Thank you so much for supporting this ministry. Before I jump off into the weeds, thank you for supporting this ministry both in your prayers, your participation, and your giving. I'm very excited to tell you that we have a new camera on order that has been made possible by all of you. And so it's supposed to be arriving very soon, and it'll save me a lot of time, because now I will be able to leave this camera, the Shields and Arrows camera, if you want to call it that, here. And I don't have to be lugging it back and forth from one place to the next. So really do appreciate that. Thank you for making all of that possible. All right, now, before we get into areas of theology, I do want to mention the big, beautiful bill. The Senate is still working on approving parts of it before it all comes to a final vote. The Democrats read through the whole 900-something pages. It is a massive bill. There's been a ton of pork added to it. That's just politics. The truth is, it is what it is. When it comes to the big, beautiful bill, the Republicans are getting some things they want. The Democrats are not getting a lot of what they want, but some things are still going to be upheld, just the way it is. It's not a great bill. It's also not the worst bill that's ever come to fruition. The United States spends way too much money, and this bill cuts the deficit but doesn't cut deficit spending, right? It just means that we're going to be less in the hole than we were before, but we're still in the hole. When, like I said, you have both parties complaining about the bill for different reasons, Democrats complaining the efforts to cut Medicaid, Medicare, the Republicans complaining that it's spending too much money. As long as we have this bloated, overblown federal government in which we have all these extensive programs, this is about what you're going to get. I mean, it's about the best you could hope for. Yeah, there's a lot of things I wish that we would change. I know Elon Musk is not happy, and I have a lot of respect for Elon. I'm tired of talking about it. It'll probably pass. I don't know what parts of it are going to get shredded up by the parliamentarian, and then are the Senate Republicans going to stand and fight? I don't know. J.D. Vance, if you posted a picture holding an AR in front of a stack of wood, okay? Please don't let that be just for show. All right, please, please, please. You have the power to overrule the parliamentarian. Please get silencers and short-barreled rifles taken off of the NFA. Can you just do like one thing for gun owners? Not just pose for pictures, please. All right, I'm done. I'm tired of talking about it, but this is a show that, hey, politics unfortunately affects us, whether we like it or not, the faith, the family, and the fellowship. It's a world we got to live in, and it's a world we got to make the most of. I had to talk about it. I think you're tired of hearing about the big, beautiful bill. I'm tired of hearing about it. And those are my thoughts today. Toby says, will the bill close down rural hospitals? I don't know to what extent it's going to have an impact on rural hospitals. So it's a good question, but I'm not sure on that. There may be somebody. How much are rural hospitals like in Oklahoma supported federally versus state? I guess that's going to come down to a lot of it. Big beautiful bill affecting rural hospitals. I mean, I'm just throwing out a Google search here. I don't know if this is going to help anything. This is KFF Health News. One big beautiful bill would batter rural hospital finances, researchers say. So cuts to Medicaid and other federal health programs. And that's how, I mean, there's people on Medicaid, Medicare, all over. And so that's true for rural hospitals as well. So if Medicaid and Medicare are the ones paying for these rural hospitals, I guess that's how it could affect them on that federal level. So as far as like Oklahoma and Sooner Care and things like that, I don't think that the state operations are going to hurt them. But here's this article here concerning the federal government. Hospitals would be at a disproportionate risk of closure, service reductions, or ending inpatient care. Trump's budget plan, dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, contains nearly $800 billion in Medicaid cuts, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. I'm curious how that's going to reduce it. So they're estimating that 10.3 million fewer people would be enrolled in Medicaid. The truth is, and I know that this affects people that we know. There may be somebody who is watching this show who is on Medicaid, Medicare. So this is one where this is where the Democrats complain, right? The Democrats complain about cuts to Medicaid. The Republicans complain about money still being spent too much in other areas. Medicaid, Medicare, these government benefit programs, this is the drive of the national debt. If you look at the data, that's the way it is. It's not sending money to Ukraine as much as I don't want to see the United States sending a bunch of cash to other countries. Our support of Ukraine or Israel or whatever other nation you can think of, which we probably send a whole lot more money than that to other places, that is not what's driving up the national debt. It's not even our massive military budget. It is the entitlement programs. It is welfare. That's the cause. There's so many people who are receiving money from the federal government. Honestly, even like student loans that are forgiven by the federal government, that's not really the cause of it either. It really is. It's the massive spending that is Social Security, Medicaid, things like that, that is really a heavy drain on the United States. Now, once upon a time, maybe when the economic class, or not class, but demographics of the United States was different, maybe those things would not have been such a burden. But now we have a change in the dynamics of the United States. There's not enough people who are younger to float the expenses that were put in place previously. It is what it is. Until there's a serious change to these the welfare entitlement programs that the United States is currently carrying out, we're always going to be in the hole concerning national debt. I don't think you could tariff your way out of it, even though Trump kind of thought he could, maybe, but I don't see that. So, all right, that's enough of the big, beautiful bill talk. You're tired of it. I know I'm tired of it. And so let's go ahead and move on to talking about the McLean Bible Church. Now, I talked about, very interestingly, there was a documentary published, actually a several-part documentary published by former members and some maybe current members. They're just not allowed to attend, from McLean Bible Church. And I played a little bit of it for you previously. You can find it on a number of different YouTube channels. I believe they've made this pretty well available, but primarily I think it's on this website called The Messed Up Church. Sorry, I think you were having to listen to a ad there, but The Messed Up Church, here is part one of their David Platt documentary. And so I'm not going to really have a whole lot of the audio on, but this is what it's called. If you just get on YouTube, The Real David Platt Documentary. And basically it walks through how David Platt comes in. You know, David Platt was very well known. He was the president of the IMB, I think. I don't think it was NAM. I think it was IMB. And he, really won over McLean Bible Church. Of course, they're kind of more reformed leaning, and quickly started replacing leadership, running people out of their positions, appointing elders that the church had serious problems with, elders who were very much, very clearly like politically leaning on the left. And that was one of the big complaints that the members had, that, hold on, you're steering the church into progressive liberal agendas, and you're getting away from the purpose of the church. And then there was also the whole scandal of David Platt persisting that they were not an SBC church, and yet they were giving a lot to the church, or to the SBC, Southern Baptist Convention. And then if you go on the Southern Baptist Convention website, McLean was listed as one of their churches. A whole ordeal. So if you want to know more of the story, there's several parts to this documentary here. There's at least 2 parts, and then there's some other videos as well that you can find. And so with that, feel free to take a look at it if you want to watch it. If you haven't watched it, I think you should, because David Platt he was a darling of the SBC back in the day, very famous amongst younger people. I don't know how some younger people feel about him now, but regardless, McLean Bible Church probably starting to feel some of the heat, actually, because they recently released an article, June 25th, 2025, and basically they're going to defend themselves. So here's the article from ministrywatch.com. McLean Bible Church details plot to oust David Platt and others. Reports describes coordinated strategy to topple woke leadership after lawsuits dismissed. And there was lawsuits to access the books. The leaders, David Platt, the like, they weren't allowing the members to get access to the books, right? The budget, the money, where it was going. So the article says, following the dismissal of the last of several lawsuits filed against McLean Bible Church and its lead pastor, David Platt. The D.C. megachurch has released a detailed internal report chronicling years of bitter infighting and political polarization. The report, written by executive pastor Wade Burnett and endorsed by the church's board of elders, outlines how a small but vocal group of dissident members and outside supporters reportedly launched a sustained, coordinated effort to remove Platt and other senior leaders. I feel like the term small there may be a little bit of an understatement, and if somebody has more knowledge and insight to McLean Bible Church than I do, by all means, but I feel like there's probably, I would be willing to say probably in the hundreds of members who took issue. Now, yeah, when you're a big church, I guess if you have, 15,000 members, I'm not sure how many members McLean Bible Church has at this time, 100 is a drop in the bucket. But it wasn't like it was just a couple people trying to make a fuss. There was a decent number of people who took serious issue with how David Platt was conducting leadership here. And so accusing them of pushing the historically conservative church toward what they called liberal or woke theology. Now, McLean Bible Church is historically conservative. And you'll recall that in his first presidency, Trump actually went to McLean Bible Church and David Platt prayed for him. And then later apologized for it because David Platt is a lib, a big-time lib, plain and simple. According to the report, members Jeremiah and Laura Burke led a group that used a mix of conspiracy theories. Okay, so there's one of the buzzwords, conspiracy theories, social media campaigns, and repeated lawsuits to disrupt church operations and sow distrust among members. Among the group's claims were that the church planned to sell its flagship Tyson's campus to build a mosque, and that leaders were secretly funneling money and influence to the Southern Baptist Convention, which the church had partnered with for mission work long before Platt's tenure. Platt joined NBC as pastor in 2017. So first of all, this claim right here of the Tyson's campus to build a mosque, the people who, going back to the real David Platt documentary, so over here on YouTube, that was not even a major point made by these former McLean Bible Church members. So I don't know if this article here is, let me go back and find it. I don't know if this article is trying to straw man them a little bit, but this issue was not the major complaint. The bigger complaint was largely this latter issue right here, which was McLean Bible Church secretly funneling money and influence to the Southern Baptist Convention. And there are receipts by these church members that say, hey, here was all these so-called churches that were being planted by McLean Bible Church, and yet this was in tandem with money being given to the SBC. That was the bigger issue, because in their bylaws, McLean was to be non-affiliated with any denomination. And so that's, for them to be affiliated with the SBC would be breaking the bylaws of the church. The dispute originated from an elder election held in June 2021. Just June 2021, which resulted in the slate of prospective elders put forward by church leaders being voted down for the first time in the church's history. This conflict erupted publicly amid heightened cultural tensions. So going back once again to this documentary, David Platt, as well as some of his hand-picked associate pastors, what have you, put forward a number of elders who were just obviously activists. They were left-wing, liberal people, and the church did not like it, and so they got voted down. And then this is when a lot of shenanigans started. So when David Platt did not get the elders in that he wanted, then there started to be a number of these hushed meetings, and then spur of the moment, one specific event, they held a business meeting to vote in these elders, and it was not in accordance with the rules. It was not announced. It was as if everybody was gathering for an evening service, and then boom, all of a sudden they're in business meeting. Some people try to vote, and they're told that they're not on the voting roll. A lot of shenanigans took place in the course of that. And so clearly, rigging the election, terms like that kind of come to mind. And so that absolutely did happen. Platt, a former president of the Southern Baptist Convention's International Mission Board, had preached about racial reconciliation and the primacy of the gospel over partisan politics, messages that some critics interpreted as signs of liberal drift. And this is very obvious. In 2021, 2021, obviously remember the BLM riots. David Platt marched in a BLM protest, all the things. One of the associate pastors, if not multiple, were heavily involved in that, said a number of racist things against white people. I mean, this is all documented. It's all there. You can go watch this documentary, and by Church Reform Initiative, go watch this documentary, and you can see the whole thing. And they lay it out for you. So, with that, it wasn't like this was speculation. And it's amazing because it's just like Christianity Today or the Gospel Coalition, because David Platt is heavily involved with the Gospel Coalition. They claim no partisanship, no political affiliation at all. And then every time there is an issue, they break left. Every time. Even on matters of like abortion, which David Platt claims to be pro-life, he has argued before in a book that he had, and I read some of it, Before You Vote, one of the most absurd, ridiculous books, and probably only behind the book Radical, maybe. Before You Vote, how he argued, well, if you vote in Republicans and they ban abortion, well then states may fight harder to get abortion in their laws, and so actually, if you don't want more abortions, you may need to vote for Democrats. This is the kind of logic. Platt was anti-Trump, and yet Trump was the one that got Roe v. Wade overturned, and now a number of states have outlawed abortion outright. So he's a leftist, he is a social liberal activist, all the things. In the report, this goes on, says the church alleges the group circulated internal instructions via emails and blogs on how to exploit the church's constitution to block elder appointments and stage confrontations during church business meetings. So here's the term here, exploit the church's constitution. That's an interesting line. It sounds to me like maybe the emails, the discussions they had, was just simply talking about, here are the bylaws in our Constitution, what you have a right to do. You have the right to stand up in a business meeting and make your opinion known. You're allowed to protest a business meeting. You're allowed to do certain things. Exploiting the church constitution? What a Democrat thing to say. They're using the law. They're exploiting the Constitution to deport illegals. Exploiting the Constitution? You mean enforcing the law, going by the rules, going by the books. Once again, it's very, very amusing to me. In the emails, Jeremiah Burke addresses the NBC leadership as oddballs, blockheads, and board of trolls. Oh, how terrible. They should. You see what I say and Dr. White says about some of these people. In over 4 years, the group filed nearly a dozen lawsuits and appeals against the church, its board of elders, and its pastors, seeking to nullify elections and control church membership rolls. Control church membership rolls. But by that, what they mean is get members back on the roll because members were kicked off. Once again, the documentary here talks about how active members were kicked off of the rolls in order to control elections. McLean is in serious damage control right now. And if they did not release an article like this, or if they did release an article like this, which they clearly did, I think they're in trouble. And McLean has been in trouble. Now, they're claiming here that a number of people have joined the church. Church membership has grown by over 1,400 people since 2020. Financial giving remains robust. Well, that's partly because David Platt says if you don't give everything you have, there's a number of people who have gone broke following David Platt's preaching. Yet David Platt owns $1 million home in Washington, D.C., which I get it. It's expensive there. $1 million is not a lot for D.C., but I mean, why isn't he not just living in the church? Shouldn't he just be living in the church if he's preaching this whole prosperity gospel, sell everything you have? I mean, that's how he made all his money off of the book Radical. So just to follow up on that, interesting claims, trying to smear, I guess, or trying to defend themselves against the documentary, against these McLean Bible members, former members, because they were kicked out or what have you. And so it'll be interesting to see how the future for David Platt continues to play out, because I think he's already been damaged in a number of ways. And I think he's even been becoming less popular amongst young men, because young men are very conservative. I mean, extremely so. Trump's not conservative enough for some of these young men. Trump's not conservative enough for me sometimes, right? And so when you have Platt, who is marching with BLM and only seems to have criticism for conservatives and never for liberals, and he's always apologizing for them or defending them because, well, it's how they were treated by bad actor evangelicals, whatever he does, whatever he says, his arguments. I think he's done. I mean, I think he's going to pastor McLean Bible Church for a good long while. He's already been there for quite a while. By pastor standards, he's been there for a good long while. I mean, I think he's been there for, I don't know. He's got to be getting close to 10 years, probably. And for big-time preachers like that, 10 years is a decent while before moving on and doing something else. I think he's going to continue to make good money doing what he's doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. But I think his record is pretty well tarnished. That's what I think. And so, see a couple comments here from some of you. Myra says that was an interesting video, almost exactly like the one in North Carolina. I guess I'm not as familiar with the one in North Carolina. So J.D. Greer, though, Myra says, was a part of that. And J.D. Greer, he's the one that's over Christianity Today now, isn't he? Or am I thinking of another one? No, that's Russell Moore, isn't it? Over Christianity Today. J.D. Greer, why am I not coming up with the name? Was he the former president of the SBC? Because Russell Moore was Saddleback, right? Yeah, he was that's right. Former SBC president. Right, he's the former. He's not the current. Yeah, so I didn't know that there was some scandal surrounding his time in North Carolina. He probably is a reason why the SBC has tried to at least swing a little bit back to the conservative side a little bit, because he was definitely negative PR for them to a large degree. Robert Craig says they've been around that long. I've never heard of them before this controversy. Oh, McLean Bible Church. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, McLean's been around for a good long time. 70s, I think, is when they got started. Mr. Edmondson asked, do socialists have calluses? Only the poor subjects in socialist countries that work for the elites, basically. for the what's the I'm looking for? For the regime, for the dictators, people. All right, let's go ahead and move on now. I want to talk about another interesting issue. So there's a lot of confusion surrounding the issue of or the subject of faith. And I hope that in time I can continue to try to make some headway here. Here is our problem. The Bible, taken for its plain meaning, presents to us the giving of the law to Israel and their requirement to keep it, and God's expectation for them to keep it, and they will be blessed, and if they were to be disobedient, God would curse them. And moving from Israel to our age, the mystery age revealed to Paul after Israel as a nation rejected the Messiah, we're not under the law. We're not required to keep Sabbath. We're not required to offer sacrifices. We're not even required to practice circumcision, all those things. It is in the plain reading so apparent that Israel had to keep the law. They had to. You could not be in right standing with God as a Hebrew, Israelite, and neglect the commandments. You just couldn't do it. Here is where so much of Christianity is confused. They read enough of Paul to clearly see that we are saved by grace through faith. Now, some Reformed, whatnot, may struggle and they may start incorporating a little bit of works in there. I saw, somebody who's Reformed just the other day say you cannot be a Christian and not go to church. It's putting works. It's works there, okay? If you're required to go to church in order to be a Christian, then you are not saved by grace through faith. You're saved by grace through faith and works. So they see Paul being abundantly clear on the matter. We can look at Ephesians 2:8, Romans 5:1, whatever examples you want to go to. They look back on the Old Testament and they do not accept any kind of dispensational theology. They miss any teachings on the mystery, that we live in a mystery age, a secret age that was not known in previous age. They miss all that. They probably because bad Bible translations, probably because they've just been told over and over again certain dogmas, and so they just completely overlook Ephesians 3, Colossians 1, Romans 16, Galatians 1 and 2, even Acts chapters, 9 through 13, all those interesting things, right? As you're seeing all that unfold. They overlook it, they miss it. The conclusion then is, this is basically covenant theology. There's only one people of God, and man has always been right with God by grace through faith, not of works. They have a number of passages they go to to build their case. And a lot of it comes out of Hebrews. This proof texting that they will do to solidify their argument. Hebrews chapter 11, sometimes known as the Hall of Faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it, the elders obtained a good report. So they will argue, by it, the elders obtained a good report. That this statement is clear that, let me highlight it here for you. This statement's clear that everybody of every age has been saved by grace through faith alone. It's always been the same message, right? Believing in God. I think this is a fundamental misunderstanding because they're overlooking the mystery, for one. We did not know that God was going to offer salvation by grace through faith through the reconciling work of Christ. We really didn't even know before it happened that Messiah was to die. Were the prophecies there? Sure. Also, we're looking back with 2020 vision. The disciples, when Christ was resurrected and they ran to the tomb, did not know. You can maybe try to argue they were saved by grace through faith alone, but it was not faith in the death and resurrection of Christ. It wasn't. That was not their faith. So now you're in a very bad situation because what you're saying is a person does not have to believe in the death and resurrection of Jesus to be saved. That all you got to do is just believe in God and what He told you. They'll argue, well, they believed that the Messiah would come. They believed in a resurrection, which a lot of preachers completely overlook. The disciples didn't know, and they'll just say that they looked forward to the cross, which is an incoherent argument. They did not know the cross was going to happen, plain and simple. You then just get reduced down saying, well, they were saved by faith just because they just believed whatever God told them at the time. You really do get into a situation where people are just saved by believing about God. I mean, really, they did not have to trust in the work of Christ because they didn't know about it. It does create a problem for you. Now, you can argue, well, once it was revealed that Christ died for their sins, then they were required to have faith in that. Okay, but you're still saying that there was a point in time when man was just completely saved by faith alone without ever knowing about the atoning work of Christ. Puts you in a rough situation to where believing in the gospel was not necessary, maybe isn't even necessary for today. Like when we start trying to explain how people in remote regions are saved just by trusting in a creator, even though they don't know the gospel. The article goes on, the Word of God goes on. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so that things which are seen were made of things which do appear, or things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. So by faith, Abel offered the sacrifice, and this is the key. Faith has always been required of man. God has always asked for man to have faith, instructed man to have faith. God has always regarded faith. But with that faith, Abel was to do something. Abel offered God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. The faith of Abel was the basis for offering that sacrifice. Would Abel have been approved by God if he didn't offer a sacrifice? No. He wouldn't have. Because the sacrifice was pleasing unto God. The faith of Abel required an action, included in action. This is where Christianity starts to mess up, because they take the context of faith for Abel and try to mix it for us today, and they will say, if you have faith, then you must do such and such things because that's what your faith is. Your faith is not, if I do these works, I will be accepted by God. That was Abel's faith. Abel believed that if he did what was right, did what was good, he would be accepted by God. Same thing with Israelites keeping the law, keeping the commandments. We believe God's word, at least they were supposed to, and we believe that if we are obedient to keep God's commands, we will be accepted by Him. That is faith, absolutely, but it was faith that incorporated the requirement of works. Entirely different from us. Our faith is, there is nothing we can do that God is going to accept. There is nothing that we can do that is going to access atonement. Christ has already brought the atonement. That's why our faith is one completely absent of works. They had faith. They had faith in the fulfilling of the law to be right with God. But it was faith that required something. This is the difference between our age and the law age. Christianity has got to get this figured out. See, they make the mistake of just because faith is required, wanted by God, needed by God, at least for man's standing with Him, they assume that it has always been by faith and not of works. That is patently incorrect. Now, they also make the mistake of reading our salvation into the Old Testament. The salvation of the Old Testament is, you will go to the grave, be resurrected a future day, and then given gifts according to your conduct and your works and judged by your obedience. That's very much the Hebrew type doctrine in the Old Testament. You can even see it in Revelation. Jesus talks about it as well, I would argue, in the Gospels. Verse 6 says, "But without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him." Even this right here is confirming what I was telling you. He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. To me, that sounds like a work type thing, being rewarded for that. Now, maybe you can try to argue, well, are we seeking God when we're going to Bible study? Sure, you can maybe argue that, but I think it works both ways. And it's all about context. All about context. Just like Paul's use of working out your own salvation. Is that works for salvation, or is that putting your salvation to action? But faith is obviously necessary to please God. You can't reject God. You have to believe in God. And he uses all the examples. By faith, Abram, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing whither he went. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise. That required him to do something, though. He had to leave his father's house. He had to leave his kindred. He had to leave his land. The confusion for so many of you, and I'm talking about, at broad, not you, my immediate audience here, because those of you watching this live stream get it and understand. The context of faith for them in the Old Testament was you had to have faith, absolutely, but that faith included, if I do this, God will bless me and reward me. If I don't do this, then God will curse me. It is different. It's distinct. Galatians makes it very clear, until the faith came, we were shut up, kept under the law. we've got to get this faith matter figured out. And it's going to be something that I'm going to be working on in days to come. I have an article. I can't remember if it's on my new website yet. I need to have it put on there if it isn't. Understand the context of faith. So this is on my new website. Faith was and is essential. What types of faith are found in the Bible? The issue with assumptions. The connection of faith and obedience. Different faiths have different types of obedience. You and I, we are obedient by working not. That's how we are able to be in right standing with God. And our righteousness is unto a sealing, a guaranteeing of eternal life right now. Israel's is a sealing, or no, it's not a sealing. It is it's a hope of a resurrection, a future day. They will be resurrected from the dead, given gifts according to their obedience to God, and enter into the kingdom. This is the problem with mixing it all in together. You start to run into the issue of, well, we obtained the same gift as Israel by our faith, and they did by keeping the law. And that just completely puts us in a bad place, and it gives ammunition to the naysayers that want to argue, no, it's always been by faith alone, because otherwise, how can somebody obtain our gift, our offer of salvation today by works? But Paul says that man's not justified by works. Well, the key is, it is a distinct thing. What was offered to Israel, the kingdom and all of those matters, are a different issue altogether, a different thing than what we're being offered today. I'm not going to reign as a priest in Jerusalem. I'm reconciled unto God. I don't know what eternity is going to be like, but I have blessings that are awaiting me. That's the key. And it is a distinct thing. It is a distinct matter altogether. There's a video that I was going to show you today, but I'm probably going to put it off until tomorrow. Very interesting, though. A rabbi gets this. A rabbi gets that Paul's ministry and Paul preaching faith alone was a distinct thing from it. Now, obviously, he rejects Paul. And he rejects Peter and the rest of the apostles. But he understands that Jesus was teaching the law. Peter was teaching the law, and Paul's the guy that comes along and teaches everything else. So why is Jesus not the Messiah for the Jews? We'll talk about probably this video at a later time. I'm going to end up probably cutting today's episode just a little bit short because it is 4 minutes, but when I go to break down a 4-minute video, it takes me about 20 minutes or so. So that'll probably be the teaser. We're going to get to that tomorrow. But we do have to understand, we've got to work through this issue of you cannot oversimplify the faith topic. You can't just throw it all into the same barrel. You've got to acknowledge that there's faith with different contexts, faith with different instruction, faith with different scope, and faith with different rewards. Plain and simple. And it's a very grave mistake to say it's always been by grace through faith and not of works, because now you're ignoring the Pauline mystery, you're ignoring the testimony of Scripture, and you're undermining the Old Testament law. It's amazing to me how no Jew today, if the Old Testament was so clear that it was always by faith and not of works and obedience, why is there not at least a practicing Jew out there who says it's by faith alone? That they're not there. They're not there. They are going to say that you need to carry out obedience. One of their major critiques of Christianity is the argument that works are not essential. Because the law is clear, you must do those things. And they will say if a man truly believes it, then he will do those things, he will be obedient. But the obedience, the carrying out of the work is still essential, plain and simple. So they may have that argument, but all the same, it is needed. It is necessary to keep the commandments. So I want to spend some time, probably tomorrow, continuing to work on this issue and discerning, here's what the Old Testament clearly says, and here's even what Hebrews says. And Hebrews has been misunderstood so many times. I want to do a study on the book of Hebrews at some point. Dr. White has a good study on Hebrews. You would do well to watch it. There's some other good right dividers out there who can explain Hebrews. And so with that, those are my thoughts on this issue, the confusion concerning faith. Because otherwise, you really are going to undermine the Old Testament. You're going to undermine Hebrews. You're going to undermine the Gospels, which we have done many times before. The Baptists rob from Jesus to pay Paul. They really do. When Jesus emphasizes keeping the commandments, enduring to the end, the Baptists default to Paul, whereas the Catholics, maybe the Church of Christ, some people like that, they rob from Paul to pay Peter or Jesus. And the truth is, it's not Paul versus Jesus. It is Paul given the revelation of the mystery by Jesus. This is what God is doing today, fundamentally different from what he was doing with Israel in the past. It's a different offer. It's a different means of being right with God, and it's not concerning what you read in Exodus through Acts 12. It's something distinct, plain and simple. And we've got to get this figured out. Right division is so essential for having a clear understanding of the Bible and getting the gospel right. Because otherwise you greatly risk, on one hand, adding works into our age of grace. Some do it, right? On the other hand, you run the risk of undermining the Old Testament, and you end up making us the fulfillment of the New Covenant. You get your eschatology all wrong, and unfortunately, it's a horseshoe theory, a horseshoe effect, because so many of the Reformed, the replacement, the covenant theologians, postmillennialism, amillennialism, because they will say it's always by faith, they then read James, and man is justified by faith and works. Guess what happens? If you do not rightly divide, and you throw in James into our barrel, the age of grace, the church barrel, the body of Christ barrel, whatever term you want to use for us today, works become essential again. And you're right back to where you were before. So that's why works does really come out on both sides of the issue here. You've got the Catholics that require it, and then you have the Protestants, supposedly, the opposites, the opposition, the protesting, and they're going to require works of their own, and they'll just call it by a different name to some degree. So I hope that makes sense today as we try to work through this, the different contexts of faith, what was asked, what was required. Today, our faith is very simple. You got to believe in the death, the resurrection of Christ. His shed blood is the means of man's reconciliation with God. You just got to believe it. You can't earn it. Going to church, going to out to do good works, none of those will merit God's favor. Even saying a prayer, asking forgiveness, that's not the gospel. It's believing in what Christ has already done. That's the key, and that's distinct because Israel's faith was, we believe in our one true God, and we believe that if we keep the law that He gave us, He will bless us. That was the faith an Israelite had. It was not, I'm looking thousands of years forward to the day when the Messiah dies for my sins and rises again. It's not there in Scripture. It's not biblical. It's not correct. And unfortunately, we have so many preachers who supposedly have a position of authority. They're experts on the matter because they have a degree from whatever seminary, and they are as confused doctrinally, theologically as they possibly can be. And that's why Shields and Arrows exists, to defend the faith accurately with good, sound doctrine. And Shields and Arrows would not happen if it was not for you. You are the ones that make this possible. Your dedication, the defense of the faith, sharing the gospel with people, being diligent Bible students of your own, as well as supporting my ministry and others like it, is a major part of this. So we are all together in this thing, fighting alongside one another for the sake of it all. And I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that this has been a time of some encouragement to you to discuss some issues, to discuss some matters today. And tomorrow we're going to probably watch the video over this Jewish rabbi talking about the distinctions between Paul and Peter because he gets it. I wish that others could understand it, that they would be able to grasp it. Because if the Jewish rabbi can see it, why can't we get some of these supposed theologians and experts to figure it out? But hey, somebody's got to do it. Might as well be us. Everyone, thank you so much for watching Shields and Arrows today. Once again, I'm Pastor Mark Baze, pastor of Blue Baptist Church, Blue, Oklahoma. I am going to be going live again tomorrow, same time, so be ready to join us then as we continue this discussion. Thank you so much.